All right. Yesterday we talked a lot about what is your dream? What are you angling yourself towards in life? And what can you do to start now to start preparing for that? So, today in independent reading, I want you to think about what is your character's dream? What are their aspirations? What is their ultimate goal? So, we'll give you a few minutes there and then we're getting into it. We're going to read the first half of Amigo Brothers. So, enjoy your book for 10 minutes and I'll meet you back. All right, just two things you need for today. Your teacher has a handout of our note sheet, just some things we're going to pause and keep track of as we read. And I want to keep our flow and our momentum going because obviously it is a big fight scene in our story. So we're not going to be stopping constantly. So we just need this handout and something to write with. And then on Google Classroom, if you visit our Amigo Brothers post, you'll find our story. Okay, so go ahead and click on that link. If you need to pause, go ahead and do so, and we'll meet you back. All right, on this sheet, the first part is we have Antonio. He's one of the fighters, and we're going to just note his character description, what he looks like, his boxing style, how he fights, because he's different from his buddy, his amigo Felix, and so we'll take note of that, just to keep him straight. And then you're going to decide what team you're on. You team Antonio or you team Felix. Couple of word choices. We talked about some of these yesterday. We've got some boxing jargon in here, technical terms related to a field, so some boxing type of words. And then we're going to make a stop and make some inferences. The inferences are you're picking up what the author's putting down. Clues, nuggets, crumbs. They are alluding to this. They are painting the picture. They are showing you, but they're not necessarily coming out and telling it to you and screaming in your face. But good readers, you conclude this. You can tell without the author explicitly stating it. So we're gonna make just a few inferences as we read today. Just five times I want to stop and be like, all right, what do you think? What can you tell in this situation? Okay. So as we start, the exposition, we talked about plot with after 20 years. The exposition is just the start of a story. How does the author establish characters and setting? And so we're going to take a look at who is Antonio, who is Felix, what is it like, where are they coming from out of this Lower East Side? So expectations is you're only on this screen, no other screens, and you're following along in our text. We are going to have a little quiz on the story with plot, and so you're going to need to know all of the events. So I would say we're going to read it together today, and then I also recommend on your own that you're going to want to do a reread of this story, but it's good, okay? All right, so here we go. Amigo Brothers by Perry Thomas. You've got your notes in front of you. Put that off just to the side for a minute, and we're just looking at this page. Here we go. I'm going to start, and then I'll turn some text over to you. Amigo Brothers. Antonio Cruz and Felix Vargas were both 17 years old. They were so together in friendship they felt themselves to be brothers. They had known each other since childhood, growing up on the Lower East Side of Manhattan in the same tenement building on 5th Street between Avenue A and Avenue B. Antonio was fair, lean, and lanky, while Felix was dark, short, and husky. Antonio's hair was always falling over his eyes, while Felix wore his black hair in a natural afro style. Each youngster had a dream of someday becoming lightweight champion of the world, and every chance they had, the boys worked out, sometimes at the boys' club on 10th Street and Avenue A, and sometimes at Pro's gym on 14th Street. Early morning sunrises would find them running along the East River Drive, wrapped in sweatshirts, short towels around their necks, handkerchiefs Apache style around their foreheads. While some youngsters were into street negatives, Antonio and Felix slept, ate, rapped, and dreamt positive. Between them, they had a collection of fight magazines second to none, plus a scrapbook filled with torn tickets to every boxing match they had ever attended, and some clippings of their own. If asked a question about any given fighter, they'd immediately zip out from their memory banks divisions, weights, records of fights, knockouts, technical knockouts, and draws or losses. Each had fought many bouts representing their community and had won 2 gold-plated medals, plus a silver and a bronze medallion. The difference was in their style. Antonio's lean form and long reach made him the better boxer, while Felix's short, muscular frame made him the better slugger. Whenever they met in the ring for sparring sessions, it had always been hot and heavy. But now, after a series of elimination bouts, they had been informed that they were to meet each other in the division finals that were scheduled for the 7th of August, 2 weeks away. The winner to represent the boys' club in the Golden Gloves tournament, championship tournament. The two boys continued to run together along the East River Drive, but even when joking with each other, they both sensed a wall rising between them. One morning, less than a week before their bout, they met as usual before their daily workout. They fooled around with a few jabs at the air, slapped skin, and took off running lightly along the dirty East River's edge. Antonio glanced at Felix, who kept his eyes purposely straight ahead, pausing from time to time to do some fancy legwork while throwing 1-2s followed by uppercuts to an imaginary jaw. Antonio then beat the air with a barrage of body blows and short, devastating lefts with an overhead jaw-breaking right. After a mile or so, Felix puffed and said, "Stop a while, bro. I think we both got something to say to each other." Antonio nodded. It was not natural to be acting as though nothing unusual was happening when two ace-spoon buddies were going to be blasting each other within a few short days. They rested their elbows on the railing, separating them from the river. Antonio wiped his face with his short towel. The sunrise was now creating day. Felix leaned heavily on the river's railing and stared across to the shores of Brooklyn. Finally, he broke the silence. "Man, I don't know how I come out with it." Antonio helped. "It's about our fight, right?" "Yeah, right." Felix's eyes squinted at the rising orange sun. "I've been thinking about it too, Panin. In fact, since we found out it's going to be me and you, I've been awake at night, pulling punches on you, trying not to hurt you." "Same here. It ain't natural not to think about the fight. I mean, we are both Chevrolet fighters and we both want to win, but only one of us can win. There ain't no draws in the eliminations." Felix tapped Antonio gently on the shoulder. I don't mean to seem like I'm bragging, bro, but I want to win, fair and square." All right. We're just going to pause for a second right here. So looking at your notes, the first question is, what are they like? What do they look like? Their bodies, all right? So we got Antonio, and the text says that he is fair, lean, and lanky. On the other hand, Felix, dark, short, and husky. He's going to be like he's going to be more of the slugger, more like the powerhouse, okay? So on our notes, let's do it. Antonio, what does he look like? So he's fair, lean, lanky. Felix, dark, short, and husky. All right. Oop. All right. It's kind of like my two cats. I got one's long and lean and lanky. The other one's a little bit husky. All right. But then their difference is in their style. As we scroll and roll down, it talks about how they fight. That, they're both evenly matched as boxers, and we get in that ring and it's all out. It is really close, but their difference is in their style. Antonio, the long, lean, lanky one, he's got this long reach, a better boxer, probably more like a textbook boxer with the form. Felix, man, he's just a beefcake, just a short, muscular frame that he is the better slugger. So one has a long reach and better form. The other is our powerhouse slugger. So Antonio, long reach. Oops. And this guy is a slugger. Powerhouse. All right? 2 hits. Him hitting you, you hitting the floor. So right now decide who's on team Antonio. Raise your hand, Antonio. And who's for team Felix? Felix. All right, really cool. So let's figure out what some of these words mean. I realize that I need to do tenements, but because we already kind of talked about lanky, what does lanky probably mean based on words around? He's long, he's lean, and lanky. So go ahead and put your own idea there. Go for it. Good words. You don't have to have exactly what I have. I want you to think. But lanky probably means like slender and slim. Very cool. Now let's think about, they come from a tenement. Both kids live in a tenement. And here they tell us a tenement, it's a building that's cheaply built, a really poorly maintained. Basically, it's just a very, very rundown housing. And it's a building. So that building's going to have a series of small rooms. Sometimes they took like old factories and they cobbled together different types of rooms for families to live in, but cheap, kind of run by a slumlord. When they meet in their ring for sparring, it's always been hot and heavy. My brother was a black belt growing up, and so I was real cautious going around corners because he's always coming at me and stuff. And he would always be like, "Come on, Beth, let's spar." Right? What is spar? If you're sparring with somebody, they meet in the ring for sparring, right? Not a death match, not an actual tournament, but they're sparring together, and that is going to be like a practice fight. Nice. All right. And one more word, and then we're going to make some inferences here. So as they're working out, Antonio beat the air with a barrage of body blows. Right? Come up with a great word for barrage. Talk with your neighbor real quick. What's a great synonym word that means the same thing for barrage? All right, sometimes kids say it's like a bombardment. It's like a flurry. It's like a storm, right? It's like this onslaught, right? This just big, rapid, powerful amount of blows, okay? Bombardment, this flurry. All right, I love it. I like it. So they're running. And so we meet Antonio, we meet Felix. We know they look different. They have different form. But let's make an inference here. They're coming. They've lived in the same tenement building on 5th Street between Avenue A and Avenue B their whole life on this lower east side. What is an inference you can make about their circumstances, about their life? Because they live in a tenement, what is your aha? Okay, so talk with your neighbor. Go ahead and put something right there now. Okay, I can give you 10 seconds. What is your aha because they live in a tenement? All right. So we might say that they come from rough circumstances. They don't have much. They don't come from much. They don't have a lot of financial resources, a lot of support. So for them, boxing is perhaps this ticket to a better life. So how does the story start? Okay, the two boys are running. Early morning sunrise. Find them running. It's sunrise, and these teenagers are running. What do you do when you don't have to be at school? What did you do all during quarantine at sunrise? Where were you all summer at sunrise? Sleeping? Still up gaming from the night before? These kids are up running. So what's an inference we have about them as people, as athletes, because they're running at sunrise? I can tell that these kids are extremely dedicated. All right. Okay. If you need to pause to get those 2 notes, go for it. But as we continue, the text tells us that between them, they have a collection of fight magazines, second to none, a scrapbook full of all kinds of boxing matches and clippings, even some of their own clippings. So what can we tell about their feelings with boxing? Absolutely fervent. They are on fire. This is their obsession. This is their fuel. This is what drives them. Boxing, for them, boxing is life. Okay? So let's put that right here. Boxing is their life and passion. It's what they live for. It's their why. We saw that video yesterday. It's their why. It's their ticket to a better life. It's what gives them hope. It's what gives them direction every day. It's what keeps them on the straight and narrow. The text mentioned street negatives. They don't have time for that. This is their why. All right, very cool. So that's the exposition. What would you say is the complication? The womp womp trigger event would they find out? They found out that they, after a series of elimination bouts, they were to meet each other in the division finals in 2 weeks. And how do they feel about that, right? How do they feel about, what does the text say? One dude is looking at his friend, the other friend can't even look, he's keeping his eyes straight ahead, right? They're trying to act like it's normal, and then finally one of them just addresses a big fat elephant in the room. He's like, dude, we gotta talk about this, bro. Let's stop. We got something to say to each other, right? He just cuts through the bull and he's like, let's just acknowledge it. And they do. And they do. You know, man, I've been thinking about our fight. I've been lying awake at night, trying to pull punches on you, trying to hurt you. What does pulling punches mean? I'm trying to think about fighting you, but in my mind, I'm like pulling punches on you, right? If you're pulling a punch back, what are you doing? probably not going at it full force. So what can I tell about how these kids feel? What can you tell about them? They're feeling good. The text uses a metaphor. They had this wall, this metaphorical wall rising between them. So we can tell, right? They feel greatly conflicted about fighting each other, right? This is causing a lot of personal angst and conflict. And, it's not just, oh, I got to play tennis against you. I hope one of us I hope we both do a great job, but one of us can win. Boxing, you're pummeling your friend's face in, right? You're going to beat him till his eyes fall shut. You're going to knock him down on those mats. To get to a better life, only one of them goes to the Golden Gloves. We know the Golden Gloves is a ticket, as a show, okay? Very cool. So we made some good inferences here. We've got a background in these two kids, and we know they're going for it. You only have one inference left. We're going to keep a lot of momentum going as we read next. Turning some text over to you, okay? We are now on page 7, okay? You're going to read just page 7. What do they decide? Big conflict. They got to fight each other. They're best friends. What would you do? So what do? They make a decision, all right? So that's the first thing I want you to do. They make a decision. What do they decide? And the second thing I want you to figure out is, what does this word pensively mean? And that's your note and context clues, okay? So I will pause, read page 7, figure out what they decide, and what does pensively mean. Check you in a minute. Decision time. Yeah, no pulling punches, man. We go all the way. Yes, right, I think it's a good idea if we don't see each other until the day of the fight, right? I'm gonna go stay with my Aunt Lucy in the Bronx. I'll use Gleason's gym for working out. My manager says he's got some sparring partners with more or less your style. So, decision 1, all out, right? They're going full stop, going to go ham on each other. It's no pulling punches all the way when they get in the ring. They're gonna be like two strangers that don't know each other, and they're going all the way. Second, they're gonna separate. So I wonder if that separation will help them out or not. Is it going to make them more emotional and miss each other, or the separation be good and clear the head, out of sight, out of mind? So that's a good little piece of our rising action. They're going all out, and they're gonna separate. Tony's scratching his nose real pensively. He's thinking it over, right? Yeah, pensively. What does pensive mean? He's thinking, yeah, okay, all right, deal, dude. It'd be better for a head. So if he's real pensive, I think he's doing it very thoughtfully. Okay, very cool. So I'm going to read with you now. I'm going to read pages 8 and 9. So let's start right here. Tony jogged away. Felix watched his friend disappear from view, throwing rights and lefts. Both fighters had a lot of psyching up to do before the big fight. The days in training passed much too slowly. Although they kept out of each other's way, they were aware of each other's progress via the ghetto grapevine. The evening before the big fight, Tony made his way to the roof of his tenement. In the quiet, early dark, he peered over the ledge. 6 stories below, the lights of the city blinked. The sounds of cars mingled with the curses and laughter of children in the street. He tried not to think about Felix, feeling he had succeeded in psyching his mind. But only in the ring would he really know. To spare Felix hurt, he'd have to knock him out early and quick. Up in the South Bronx, Felix decided to take in a movie in an effort to keep Antonio's face away from his fists. The flick was The Champion with Kirk Douglas, the 3rd time Felix was seeing it. The champion was getting beaten, his face being pounded into raw, wet hamburger. His eyes were cut, jagged, bleeding, one eye swollen, the other almost shut. He was saved only by the sound of the bell. Felix became the champ, Tony the challenger. The movie audience was going out of its head, roaring in bloodlust at the butchery going on. The champ hunched his shoulders, grunting, sniffing red blood back into his broken nose. The challenger, confident that he had the championship in the bag, threw a left. The champ countered with a dynamite right that exploded into the challenger's brains. Felix's right arm felt the shock. Antonio's face, superimposed on the screen, was shattered and split apart by the awesome force of the killer blow. Felix saw himself in the ring, blasting Antonio against the ropes. The champ had to be forcibly restrained. The challenger was allowed to crumble slowly to the canvas, a broken, bloody mess. Oh, Perry Thomas, I love your writing so much. When Felix finally left the theater, he had figured out how to psych himself up for tomorrow's fight. It was Felix the champion versus Antonio the challenger. He walked up some dark streets, deserted except for small pockets of weary-looking kids wearing gang colors. Despite the fact that he was Puerto Rican like them, they eyed him as a stranger to their turf. Felix did a fast shuffle, bobbing and weaving while letting loose a torrent of blows that would demolish whatever got in its way. It seemed to impress the brothers, who let him go about their business. Finding no takers, Felix decided to split to his aunt's. Walking the streets had not relaxed him. Neither had that fight flick. All it had done was stir him up. He let himself quietly into Aunt Lucy's apartment and went straight to bed, falling into a fitful sleep with the sounds of the gong for round one. Antonio, he was passing some heavy time on his rooftop. How would the fight tomorrow affect his relationship with Felix? After all, fighting was like any other profession. Friendship had nothing to do with it. A gnawing doubt crept in. He cut negative thinking real quick by doing some speedy fancy dance steps, bobbing and weaving like Mercury. The night air was blurred with perpetual motions of hooks and right crosses. Felix, his amigo brother, was not going to be Felix at all in the ring. Just an opponent with another face. Antonio went to sleep, hearing the opening bell for the first round. Like his friend in the South Bronx, he prayed for a victory via quick, clean knockout in the first round. Large posters plastered all over the walls of local shops announced the fight between Antonio Cruz and Felix Vargas as the main bout. The fight had created great interest in the neighborhood. Antonio and Felix were well liked and respected. Each had his own loyal following. Betting fever was high, and it ranged from a bottle of Coke to cold hard cash on the line. Antonio's fans bet with unbridled faith in his boxing skills. On the other side, Felix's admirers bet on his dynamite-packed fists. Who you betting on? Who are you betting on? All right, so they psych up in different ways. Talk to your neighbor. I'll pause. What does Antonio do, and what does Felix do? Okay, if you look back if you need to, just how does each fighter psych up and prepare mentally for battle? All right, our friend Felix, he's walking those streets, he's all stirred up, and he ends up going to a movie, and he's imagining, it's just, we're just these movie characters, we're just these actors in the ring, we're just like a Rocky movie, right? We're fighting this out, and he uses that to try to psych him out. So some of us listen to music, he watches this action movie. Antonio, on the other hand, he's up on the rooftop in the city, looking down, thinking about the fight. Okay, so they psych up in different ways. One more quiet, thoughtful, reflective. The other walking the streets. Question: how come when he saw those kids wearing gang colors and he was on their turf, why didn't they jump him? How come he didn't get assaulted? Perhaps that torrent of blows that would demolish whatever got in its way. Pretty awesome. All right, an inference. What can we tell about this community? So they separate to clear their heads, but yet they're aware of each other's progress via this ghetto grapevine. What is that? What is this ghetto grapevine? The social media of the Lower East Side, but it's not social media. It's real life. It's the word, right? What is ghetto grapevine? Do we have a ghetto grapevine in the 7th grade wing? A little gossip, a little rumor getting passed up and down? Ghetto grapevine, right? It's the talk. It's a community chatter, is what they're saying, right? Oh man, he's got a mean left. Who he's gonna get? My boy. Okay. So they're this community. What can you tell about this community? Let's make an inference. And here it is. They kept out each other's way, but they were aware of their progress through this ghetto grapevine, and also large posters plastered all over the world, all over the walls of local shops, are announcing the big fight. What can you tell about this Lower East Side community? Go ahead and write something there. Okay, give you 10 seconds or so. This community has boxing fever. Boxing unites them. It also is probably uplifts and gives them hope that if these two youngsters kind of rising out of this gritty, crime-ridden area can find something positive and go on to have a better life, that unites us all. That is, these kids are role models, and so they have boxing fever. They're excited for it. They cannot wait for the fight. All right, cool. That's it for inferencing. We just have one word for today left, and that is corridor. I'm going to turn one more page of text over to you, and that is page 10. And I want you to stop when you finish page 10, because then we're going to be at the show. Okay, so read page 10, and I want you to think, what is the word corridor? What is a corridor? So read that. We'll talk about corridor, and then we will end our work for today. Enjoy page 10. And I just want you to think about The morning of the fight. What is it like? What is the mood here on page 10? All right, enjoy. All right, so what is the mood here, right? The fight was scheduled to take place at the boys' club, but they couldn't hold all the people, so it's over in Tompkins Square Park, which you can do a little Google Earth trip and check that out. You can go there. It's a real place, which is cool, and people are all over, right? Checking out, they're hanging out of their window fire escapes, anywhere to get a glimpse of this show. So that's like frenzied, it's exciting, it's almost hysterical and filled with just crazy fandom and expectation for this fight. So I'd say that's very filled with anticipation and anxiety. It's a beehive of activity, right? Everybody's setting up, everybody's getting ready. Each fighter is escorted up a corridor to get to where they need to go. Felix waving to him from a room at the far end of the corridor. What in the heck is a corridor? Best answer, you go down a long corridor. So I'm thinking about our middle school. We take that long slanting corridor to go down to the band room or the orchestra, or not orchestras there anymore, but to choir. So corridor is like a hallway. And to add to, one more word, to add to the feeling of anticipation and expectation and excitement, we've got these loudspeakers and into them blaring speeches by dignitaries. And some of these dignitaries, they're people like a community leader, like a mayor, former boxers of the past, right? Some of these dignitaries are very well prepared, but some just kind of improvise on the spot. If you are a dignitary and you're invited to give this speech because you are, you're Muhammad Ali getting invited, you're a former boxer, you're Floyd Mayweather coming, you're the mayor of New York City, you're coming down here, you are a dignitary, you are VIP, you're a very important person. Some of these dignitaries, they give well-rehearsed, planned out, prepared speeches. There's just sort of improvise, kind of like improv comedy. It is off the cuff, right? You just, improvisation means to make it up. Make it up as you go. They just make it up as they go. Very cool. Okay, so this brings us, here's our notes. And this brings us to the fight. Okay, so tomorrow, come early. We're going to read The Fight, and I can't wait. I'm not going to tell you how many rounds we go. They're hoping for that quick knockout in round 1. Will they get it? I don't know. It's going to be a bloodbath. We'll see you tomorrow.